I believe Michael Gormley is with us. Hello, Michael.
Hi, how you doing? I'm sorry I'm late calling in.
No, that's fine.
I
know you have things to do. We're just sitting here.
The governor just had a press conference on the budget, but I wish I could tell you that now everything's clear, but it's not.
It's not, right. Yeah, so, let me tell my listening audience. So the bill was... the name of the article, the headline on the article is Cuomo, bill to legalize marijuana dropped from the proposed budget. And we have on the phone with us Michael Gormley from Newsday, who wrote this story. So tell us, Michael, what's happening?
Well, it's the governor's proposal. He says he doesn't think it's happening. He took the money out of the budget, and legislative leaders have been saying that they think this is something that's so complicated that it has to be taken care of outside of the budget process, which is a compressed amount of time to come to agreement. It's also done mostly through private negotiations rather than the legislative process, which would be a lot more open, would have public hearings, that type of thing. So it's kind of the push and pull on that. But right now we're getting, within a few days, April 1 is the budget has to be approved, and there's a bunch of agreements out there, a bunch of issues that are not agreed to at this point.
Okay, so I guess the marijuana issue is low on the list of priorities, or?
Well, there's one hope for people who want that bill, and that it comes with money. The problem is it doesn't bring in a lot of revenue. If they end up, and the state right now is facing a problem of revenue. Yeah. Tax collections are going down. We've got a forecast by some economists within the next couple of years there's going to be another recession. So the state, the crafters of the state budget need to find revenues, and that might force some kind of a commitment that says, we're going to do this, but we have to work it out after the budget, but let's put in some amount of money that we can count on that helps balance the budget.
Right. Now the fact that this didn't get resolved in the budget meeting, does that mean it could be addressed in a legislative session where it would be more open?
I think it would be. This is another situation we have in Albany these days, is everybody says most of the Democrats who are now in charge say they agree on a lot of these issues in concept, but it's difficult to get that down to a law of how to actually do it. So the legislative leaders are saying they would be happy to take this issue outside of the budget, and they think they could get a better law. At least it would be a lot more public process. And they want to have hearings because there's a lot of concern that's been raised, particularly since December. I noticed it. You've got law enforcement, the state PTA, you've got the state medical society, which are the physicians, that are all coming out strongly against this bill. And I think it's catching the ear of some of these legislators, because you've got a situation like on Long Island where law enforcement still has quite a bit of influence to go against them on something that they're this adamant against is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I thought it was interesting when the governor said that he wanted to make like a $42 tax on an ounce of marijuana, and I thought to myself, does the governor know he's got competition?
Well, actually, you bring up a very good point. That is one of the things that makes this difficult, is that the amount of tax revenue might not be an awful lot, at least not as much as supporters had said a year or two ago. And the reason for that is you can't make the price and the tax so high that it completely overshadows the illegal market, which will still be out there, of course.
Right. Well, I think that we're at a juncture here where the governor and whoever, it looks to me like somebody's funneling a lot of money to these organizations to get them to come out and scream about this, because it's all happening at the same time. The last minute, just before it's ready to happen, boom.
Yeah, and I'd throw one other thing. Not to be disparaging about any group, because these are expensive to wage these lobbying efforts. So there's often some kind of a organization behind this. Right. But you could also argue that you started to really see the opposition come out in December, as I mentioned, which would be, a month after the Democrats won the Senate, right. Which means that legalization of marijuana was was a real possibility because the Senate Republican majority would no longer be there to block it. So this has all ramped up for a bunch of reasons, I'm sure.
Right.
Principal among them, I think, is that now it could really happen.
Right. But I think the juncture that we're at, the governor, at this point in time could determine one way or the other whether the black market becomes ensconced or whether it crumbles and goes away.
Yeah, I mean, again, those are you talk about the details that are exactly what they're going through in their closed-door meetings now. I don't think you're going to see it go, the black market, or for lack of a better word, go away. Remember, the bill as it stands now would be for 21-year-olds and older.
Right.
So there's quite a market younger than that. And that's actually one of the concerns, is that even people who say that they don't have a problem with legalizing marijuana say their biggest problem is that not adults would be using it, but that would make it much more available to teenagers to get a hold of.
Well, my reaction to that is pretty much always the same. What are you doing about it now?
It's a good point. And in fact, I brought that up at a press conference earlier this week where they said we need more time to get school programs in to warn them about marijuana. I said, well, you've been kind of doing that since the 1970s.
Yeah, exactly.
But I said it's a thornier subject than I think a lot of people thought when they were campaigning on this last fall. And you probably remember, it was a very popular issue for Democrats.
Yeah.
And the polls are still very strong for it.
Well, yeah. And, in your article, you mentioned that research with the Siena Research Institute, 53% of voters support it, with 44% who were opposed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those polls keep coming in, and those numbers, at that ratio, are consistent. So basically, the powers that be are telling the people, be quiet, sit down and shut up.
Well, I think that part of what they're seeing, too, is states around New York are approving this.
Right.
And that's one of the concerns, too, or one of the arguments, anyway, is that if other states are going to have legalized marijuana, then you're not going to be stopping the purchases, and that maybe you'd better get on board to regulate it yourself and to tax it yourself.
Yeah. Well, yes, I do see that. I would imagine that other states want to do that. Solely because they don't want to miss out, or they see another state.
And in fairness to them too, they think that if they regulate it, they might be able to do a better job.
Right. It just blows my mind that when they had a government, it was Congress, I think, and they were interviewing the guy from the DEA, basically asking about deaths of certain drugs, and when they got to marijuana, they said none. There were none. So here we have alcohol problems, we got opioid problems, but this is what they want to focus on.
Well, it's a very good point. And I bring up one other element that law enforcement has brought up, which seems to not have an easy answer, is that they say that they don't have a really good, they don't have good technology right now to show when somebody's driving while high, that they need more time to come together with some kind of a agreeable and legal mechanism for that. So that's one of the concerns that law enforcement says they've got.
Well, actually, my phone's ringing, I think.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Listen, Michael, thank you very much. And you're going to stay hooked up to this, right? So we'll get any updates. Excellent. I'm very curious to see how this turns out. But,
okay. We're getting a big few days on this. So good.
Great. Thank you very much for calling.
You bet.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.